Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day.
Howdy, this is the Fresh Toones Show. My name is Dave Paltz, and this week's episode is a Inspirational Lives theme show, and it's dedicated to Dorothea Lynn Dix. Now, a lot of folks probably never heard of her, and I really didn't know that much about her until I did some research. And I was motivated by the fact that for 13 years I worked at the Rochester Psych Center and worked with a lot of talented nurses that cared for the folks there. And although last month was Mental Health Awareness Month, I figured we could all be a little bit more conscious of the nurses and the hard work they do, especially working with people with mental health issues. Very difficult thing to handle sometimes. I should tell you a little bit about Dorothea Lynn Dix. She lived in the 1800s. She lived to about 85, and she worked most of her life advocating for the mentally ill and for prisoners. She started out as a teacher, but she was really recognized for being a pioneer of nursing and care for those with mental health issues. She really worked hard at it and worked to improve the conditions in the jails, which was kind of unusual in the 1800s. So I'd like to start the show off today, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her life and who she was and what she was about. In the mid-1800s, it took a lot of courage to stand up and be the love that she wanted to be. I'm sure she got intimidated a lot of times for what she was working towards. But in remembering how hard it must have been for her, I'm going to play this song called Stand Up and Be Your Love.
There's just no way, so they say. Just close your eyes and close your mind. Say that's okay. Well, it's not. It's not okay. It may take some work. It may take some ways to bring about some changes, to gain a little justice, try and make things fair in this world. It's only fair to have equal justice, and to be sure that your children are fed. It's only right to raise our voices. What's killing us are the things left unsaid. Stand up. Speak up. Rise up and be your love. To bring about some changes, to gain a little justice, to try and make things fair in this world. It's only fair to have equal justice, and to be sure that the children are fed. It's only right to raise our voices. What's killing us are the things left unsaid. Oh, stand up. Oh, speak up. Rise up. Be your love. And be your love.
That fresh tune was called Stand Up and Be Your Love. Well, like a lot of folks these days, Dorothea had changed her career over from teaching at the age of 39 to focusing more on nursing. She was actually a teacher in a correctional women's facility for many, many years, but realized there was a real need for working with folks with mental health issues, and at that point in the mid-1800s, anybody with mental illness was in the prisons, which she thought was pretty crazy. And she started to advocate for some better facilities for folks that needed extra care and help with their mental health issues. Because at that point, they were all lying in the filth and without adequate clothes and abused physically and sexually in these prisons. So she figured that she should work towards getting those folks out of those prisons and at the same time helping the prisoners realize a better living situation. So for the next few decades of her life, she worked really hard to make better living conditions for both the mentally ill and prisoners at that time. Before she was done with this stage of her life, she established 32 new hospitals across the country, and that really started to relieve some of that situation for folks that were just living in terrible conditions. She probably realized she wasn't going to change the whole world, but she just did what she could do. And that's the name of this next fresh tune. It's called Just Do What You Can Do.
Just do what you can. Just let your love be your friend. When you know just who you are, your life will be your love. Your life will become the vision that you saw long ago. You strive to see the sunlight that finally brought you home. You were always searching for love. You were always digging for love. You were always thinking of love. And now love sings to you. We must become all we can. Reach out and lend our hand. It's the same hand that gave you love, now gives you peace of mind. Your life became the vision that you saw long ago. You strive to see the sunlight that finally brought you home. You were always searching for love. You were always digging for love. You were always thinking
thanks to Dorothea Dix. By the mid-1800s, there were facilities for, quote, the insane and destitute. And it wasn't just across the United States and Canada. There were also 13 other European countries that picked up what she was working towards and started to have some really better facilities for caring for the, quote, mentally ill. She was certainly a woman ahead of her time, and she advocated for the national governments to be involved with mental health. This next song I'm going to play for you is a very recent song. It was written in response to my mother's death to COVID, and it's called Net of Sadness. And I certainly have not experienced the depth of some people's depression, but this song kind of shares a little bit what I was feeling at the time, that I couldn't get out of this whirlpool of sadness or depression, which was kind of ironic because I had the initial expected reaction to my mom dying and was very sad and cried, and I was kind of surprised that, well, that was pretty brief. I'm moving right along from this experience. And then a few months later, I just went into a depression that was really hard for me to get through and work through. Probably some of my best therapy was songwriting, and this is one of the songs that came out of those efforts. It's called Net of Sadness.
In a net strung with sadness, and here do I sit. The waves cannot save me, the braids still resist. No breath can I take, no solutions yet seen. The cold all around, oh how mean it all seems. But I still dimly see the light. I hear the foghorn in the night. For ships who've lost their way, to direct them through to a better day. I've clawed back in the past, but this time seems more. The whirlpool's bigger than ever before. Pick up my pen to fend back the villain, to release my balloon to float towards the heavens. And I still dimly see the light. I hear the foghorn in the night. For ships who've lost their way, to direct them back to a better day. From high up above, it's vaguely revealed that love still exists. If we persist, we can heal. And I can see the light. I heard the foghorn in the night. For a ship who'd lost his way, directed me to a better day. Directed me to a better day.
This is the Fresh Toones Show, and today is one of my inspirational live shows. It's dedicated to Dorothea Dix. Many folks may never have heard of her. She was a social reformer, and she did it through the 1800s. She almost lived the whole century. Through that whole time period, somehow she hung on to her hope. She kept it close to her, and she was a social reformer all throughout her life, advocating for the mentally ill and trying to improve the prison system. And that devotion to the welfare of mentally ill and prisoners led to widespread international reforms. So we have much to thank her for. I'm going to play a song you might not think related to this, but it's called Find Your Hope. And I think somewhere in her early life, she found that hope, and she was up against some pretty tough problems that most folks would have said, oh, don't waste your time trying to fix that. She did, and she did fix a lot of it, and we still are working with issues with the psychiatric hospitals, but things have improved so much that a lot of it was sparked by her early initiation of reform for care for the mentally ill. So now I'm going to play a bouncy, hopeful song. It's called Find Your Hope. Find your hope and live your love and be the one you want to be. Don't get lost within the fog of what they say you need to be. You know what makes you smile these days, so give that smile away. Ooh. It lifts our hearts to see the joy our love can bring about. Let us live with all our might, give back what we can give. Then our hope will knock upon our door, say, this gift is here for you. You thought you'd never see the day when things would seem so clear. The bumpy road of life is long, but now your hope leads the way. Well, continuing with our Fresh Toones show today, dedicated to Dorothea Dix, famous social reformist, and I've told quite a bit of her story so far today, but an important part of her life was that she contributed to the formation of the U.S. Army Nurse Corps during the Civil War. At that time, only male nurses were accepted in the Army nursing duties. But she came in and convinced some of the military officials that women could also do the job perfectly well, and recruited 2,000 women to be part of that nursing force. She kind of had a tough demeanor about herself, and she had a nickname, Dragon Dix, because she was a pretty tough pissant sometimes, I guess, with folks. But she got her job done, and she got respected for it, and was a big contributor to the Union forces during the Civil War. Enough said, let's hear some music. This song is called Help Us Every Day, which I'm sure she must have had some days that she just was praying for some help from some outside source to keep going through the challenges of the Civil War. And even after the war, she went back to advocating for the mentally ill and making the prison system better. This fresh tune is called Help Us Every Day.
Help us to carry on. Help us us when we do things that don't belong. Help us when we might turn away. Help us every day. Help us to help the ones in need. Help us to believe that what I have is not me. Oh, help us to see. Help the ones that fade away. Help the ones that say that's all fine and good. I sure wish I could help. 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 Help us to carry on. Help us when we create things that don't belong. Help us when we might turn away. Oh, help us every day. Help. 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 Help.
Well, I'm going to end up today's Fresh Tune show with a song that I played a little bit of in the intro of today's show. It's a song of mine called Thanks to the Folks, and it was my way of saying thank you to all the folks in history that came before us. They laid the groundwork for a lot of reforms socially, and heaven knows there's much further than we have to go. But I really appreciate what so many folks have struggled through to get us to where we're at. This song is called Thanks to the Folks.
Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day. Open the doors when the doors were locked. Told the truth when the truth was mocked. Let us always remember that we mustn't forget that we listen very carefully and say what we must. Thanks to the folks who took the risk. What they taught us we mustn't miss. To lend a hand to plant the seed of love and giving is what the world needs. We may only be a single being, but we must try and be all that we can be. The way we live will speak much louder for the things we want to say. Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day. In our effort to do what's right, let us try with all Thanks to the folks. Thanks to the folks. Thanks to the folks. Let us thank them every day.
Well, that's it for the Fresh Toones show today. I hope you've enjoyed the show dedicated to Dorothea Dix. She contributed so much to the efforts to socially reform the care of the mentally ill and destitute and prisoners during the mid-1800s. She certainly deserves to be one of the stars of my Inspirational Lives theme shows. I hope you learned a lot about Dorothea, and maybe you'll look up her name, Dorothea Dixon, and do some research on your own. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week. So long now. If you'd like to check out some of the music videos to these songs, you can check them out at Dave's Fresh Toones at YouTube. That's Dave's Fresh Toones. That's one word with no spaces. And Toones has 2 O's, not a U. Thanks.